Good day, everyone. Welcome to the contemporary world. Today, we'll be talking about global media culture. I'm going to show you the outline of our topics for today. Our topics will be covering definitions of media, culture, and media culture. We'll be talking about globalization and media, and we'll further go deep into discussing the five periods in the study of globalization and media. And towards the end, we'll be having a brief discussion about popular music and globalization. So, shall we start with the first part, which is definitions of different terms related to global media culture. Let's first define culture. Culture, according to Webster Dictionary, is the customary beliefs, social, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. It is also the characteristic features of everyday existence such as diversions or way of life shared by people in a place or time. Hindi ba tayo ay may mga kaugalian, may mga tradisyon tayo na sinusunod na bunga ng ating kasaysayan, ng ating mga paniniwala. Itong lahat ng ito ay bahagi ng ating kultura. Ang ilan sa mga bahagi ng ating kultura ay katulad ng nabanggit ko, ano ba yung mga customs and traditions natin sa bansa? Ano ba yung wika natin, yung language natin? Uh, ano ba yung relihiyon natin? Yun yung mga beliefs natin. What is our religion? Arts and literature. Ano ba yung mga uh, sa atin ay binavalue natin as forms of art in terms of painting, sculpture, ano ba yung mga tula na sinusulat natin? Ano yung pinapahalagahan natin as art forms? Bahagi din ng kultura ay kung ano yung sistema ng economics sa ating bansa, ng ekonomiya sa ating bansa, at bahagi din ng kultura ay ang forms of government. So, kabahagi noon, yung iba't ibang mga batas na ipinatutupad to ensure na yung isang bansa ay merong magkakaroon ng law and order. So, madami itong mga elements ang culture. Tumingin lang tayo sa bahay natin, madami dyan na pwedeng simbolo or pagpapahalaga tungkol sa kultura natin. Halimbawa, bilang isang Filipino. That's culture. Next is let's define media. The term media, which is the plural of medium, refers to the communication channels through which we disseminate news, music, movies, education, promotional messages, and other data. Again, mag-focus tayo dun sa media. Sa ibig sabihin dito is that communication channel. Uh, Maaaring itong sabihin nating isang daluyan kung saan dito dinadaan yung mga information natin na gustong iparating. It includes physical and online newspapers. Example ang mga ito, magazines, TV, radio, mga billboards, telephone, ang internet, fax, at yun pa. Ang it also describes the various ways through which we communicate in the society because it refers to all means of communication, everything ranging from a telephone call to evening news on television can be called media. Okay? So, ito yung titingnan natin kapag nagdi-discuss tayo sa global media culture. Again, the highlights, the communication channels through which we disseminate the information. Now, we've looked at culture, and then media. Ano naman ngayon yung media culture? Media culture has a lot of definitions. But I guess for our discussion for today, this definition would really summarize kung ano yung gusto natin na makita at ma-discuss. Media culture refers to the culture created under the influence of mass media. The concept of media culture infers its impact on society's information consumption and intellectual guidance. Media culture tend to be a major factor in the formation of mainstream culture since it affects society's opinions, values, tastes, attitudes, and informational availability. Okay, ang sinasabi lang natin dito is that yung media ay mayroong influence kung paano ba natin tinitingnan ang maraming mga bagay dito sa ating society. Maaaring ang media ang nag-i-influence ng ating opinyon, ng ating mga paniniwala tungkol sa ibang mga bagay, ang ating mga attitude. Ito ay nagiging bahagi din ang media ng formation, yung pagbuo ng kung ano ba yung mga gusto natin, kung ano ba yung vina-value natin, kung ano ba yung mahalaga sa atin. And dahil kino-consume natin yung information na ito through the media, ay nag-i-evolve at nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang pananaw, especially kapag ito ay ibinangga natin sa globalization. Kasi dahil sa globalization, tayo bilang mga mamamayan ay nakapag-consume tayo ng iba't ibang information, hindi lang mula dito sa ating bansa, not only the domestic source, dito sa local source, kundi from international source. And with the media, kasabay din ito ang globalization. Okay? So, yun yung sunod nating titingnan ngayon. We have defined culture, we have defined media, and we have defined media culture. Now, let's go to globalization and the media. At this point, sa mga daily activities nyo na ginagawa ngayon, ano ba sa tingin nyo yung talagang isang bagay na dahil sa media ay naiimpluwensyahan kayo sa inyong pakikisalimuha sa inyong family, sa inyong sa pag-aaral ninyo, or sa inyong mga trabaho na pwede nating ma-relate sa globalization. So, yun yung mga ilan sa titingnan natin dito sa next part ng ating discussion, globalization and the media. So, ano nga bang ang role ng media? While in everyday language, globalization usually refers to economic and political integration on a world scale, on an international scale, it also has a crucial cultural dimension in which the media have a central role. When we started the contemporary world, we have defined globalization, hindi ba? We've mentioned about interconnectedness, interdependence of nation states, of different countries to one another. And usually, ang mga definition ng globalization would focus on the economic side and the political integration, hindi ba? Market integration, international trade. Pero, sa pagtingin natin sa globalization, ay meron din na mahalagang parte ang kultura. Mayroong dimension, may bahagi ang kultura to which ang media ay may napakahalagang bahagi, mahalagang parte, a central role in globalization. In that sense, media globalization is about how most national media systems have become more internationalized, becoming more open to outside influences, both in their content and in their ownership and control. Uh, think of it. Think of the media. When I say media at this point is tingnan natin yung yung dito sa ating bansa ay yung mga companies halimbawa na nagpo-produce ng iba't ibang media, balita halimbawa, they have become more internationalized kasi hindi lang ang ibinabalita natin dito ay ang mga nangyayari sa ating mga bansa. Meron nga din tayong mga news organizations na originally sila ay mula sa Western countries na meron sila dito na local base, a national base. And meron din dito na mga offices of these news outlets. So kung ang titingnan natin na media ay yung mga news organizations ay talagang it has become more open to outside influences both in their content and yung ownership and control ng mga kumpanyang ito. So, dahil sa globalization, again, we've become more interconnected. And we do not only consume the media that is the information that is consumed or produced in our country, but more so yung mga pinuproduce sa ibang mga bansa. Later on, we will go to the specific examples. But first, let's go to the 5 time periods in the study of globalization in media. This is articulated by Jack Lewell in 2014 in his book about globalization and media. Ayon sa kanya, ito ay ang 5 important eras na ito ay ang oral communication, script, printing press, electronic media, and digital media. Lahat ng yan ay isa-isahin natin. Mag-umpisa muna tayo sa oral communication. So, ano nga ba ang oral communication? Of all forms of media, human speech is the oldest and most enduring. Ito yung, pag oral communication, that's the human speech. Ito na yung pinakamatanda at enduring. Pag sinabi natin enduring, long-lasting, ever since nandyan na. Humans are allowed to cooperate and communicate through our languages. Languages as a means to develop the ability to communicate across culture are the lifeline of globalization. Language contributes to the formation of culture. Language is, in a sense, that's the substance of culture. Ito yung napakahalagang bahagi ng kultura. And ang sinasabi pa ay ang wika. This is the symbol of group belonging, enabling different groups of people to know what ethnic groups they belong to and what common heritage they share. Kapag nagsasalita ka ng Filipino, I am able to distinguish you as someone from Asia, as someone from Southeast Asia, and in particular, as someone from the Philippines. When you speak Portuguese, will you be able to identify agad-agad? Is that person from Portugal lang? Hindi, di ba? Because there are certain countries na nagsasalita din ng Portuguese. Specifically, halimbawa sa South America. Because Portugal colonized them for a long time in the past. So, ayun. Nalalaman din natin through the language kung ano yung common heritage they share. In our last lesson about Asian regionalism, ay nakita natin yung pagkakapare-pareho, pagkakahalintulad ng mga language ng iba't ibang mga bansa sa Southeast Asia at sa Pacific Islands. So, ibig sabihin, yung heritage, yung pinagmulan, yung linya ng isang pamilya ng mga lengguwahe ay nagmula, ay pwede nating sabihin nagmula sa isang mother tongue, which is yun nga yung Austronesian language. Kasama na doon ang ating mga salita, wika na ginagamit dito sa ating bansa. At sabi pa ng mga scholars is that kung walang language ay mawawala yung cultural identity nating mga tao regardless kung saan kang bansa. So that is the first era ng development ng globalization and media. This is just a trivia. According to Ethnologue is a research arm siya ng mga languages. Currently, ay merong 7,117 languages spoken in the whole world today. And roughly about 40% of the language are now endangered, often with less than 1,000 speakers remaining. Meanwhile, just 23 languages account for more than half of the world's population. Namamatay ba yung language? Yes, namamatay yung language. Kailan namamatay yung language? Kapag wala nang nagsasalita nito. Kaya mahalaga na patuloy pa rin na ang language kasi is very dynamic. Nagbabago ito, nagbabago ng forma, and lagi tayong may natututunan. The Filipino language has been evolving. Sa maraming mga taon, nagkaroon na ng mga iba't iba na versions, hindi ba? Meron tayong mga slang. Dati nauso yung Jejimon. And for certain groups, nagka-dynamic kasi. Kung halimbawa English, kung makakabasa kayo ng English na Old English, ay parang mahirap intindihin. Mahirap siyang intindihin, hindi katulad nung English na ginagamit natin ngayon. It means that through time, our languages are evolving. It's dynamic. It should always be alive if we want na talagang ito ay magpatuloy from generation to generation. So that's oral communication. Number 2, script. When we talk about script, dito yung script ng dito yung script ng ng movies or drama. But this script talks about writing. Writing is humankind's principal technology for collecting, manipulating, storing, retrieving, communicating, and disseminating information. Writing may have been invented independently 3 times in different parts of the world. In the Near East, China, Mesoamerica. Writing is a system of graphic marks representing the units of a specific language. Cuneiform. In other American and British accents have different pronunciation for cuneiform, but I would prefer cuneiform. Cuneiform script created in Mesopotamia, the present-day Iraq, kung nasa ng Iraq ngayon, is the only writing system which can be traced to its earliest prehistoric origin. That's according to Beserat. Cuneiform. Ano ba yung mga unang forms of writing? Hindi ba? Ano ba yung form of writing ngayon natin? Di ba gumagamit tayo ng alphabet? But ano yung mga early na forms of writing? This is what cuneiform script looks like. Okay? So this is a photo from University of Oxford, and it is written like wedges. May mga wedge. Yung, di ba, parang potato wedges, 'di ba? Parang medyo triangular yung shape niya, kaya titingnan niyo itong mga sides na ito. Yan. These are wedges. Hanggang sa through the evolution ay nag-prefer na ang the ancestors in Mesopotamia to move into alphabets na, and nag-let go na sila into the cuneiform script. Ito ay clay. So, habang malambot yung clay, ay dito nila isinusulat. So, kumbaga, yung parang palayok, clay pot, di ba? So, isusulat na nila doon yung kanilang script. May mga ibig sabihin yan. And yung mga scholars na nag-aral ng archaeology and history ay kaya na nilang mabasa kung ano ang nakalagay dito sa script na ito. Now, you are curious. Kung kayo ay curious, sa Pilipinas, have we always been using the alphabet as our script? No. This is the Philippine Scripts and Origins. This is from Odyssey, Nature, Culture, and People in Facebook, as featured in Philippine Star. Ito yung site on the right side. So, ano nga ba yung mga script dito sa Philippines? Ang pinakakilala sa aking pananaw ay ang baybayin. Ito ay ginamit rather sa Katagalugan. Before, I can write and I can read baybayin. Hanggang ngayon ay meron pa nga akong app sa aking cellphone ng baybayin. Nakakapagsulat ako before ng baybayin, kaya lang ay kulang sa practice kasi kailangan mo talaga siyang gamitin para talagang maging very mahusay ka sa pagbabasa at pagsusulat. So meron din na ang ating mga kapatid na mangyan sa Mindoro ay merong haninuo mangyan. Ito yun. Meron ding buhid mangyan. Ang mga kababayan natin sa Northern Palawan, mga Tagbanwa, ay Tagbanwa. Ito yung kanilang paraan ng pagsulat. At ang Pampanga ay meron din. Ito ay ang kulitan. Basahan from India, Bicolandia, Badlit sa Bisaya, Kirim sa Greater Maguindanao at Jawi sa Greater Sulu area. Kordita din ng Ilocania. Kung sa tingin ninyo, kung hanggang ngayon ay nagsusulat pa tayo ng ating Philippine scripts at lahat ng ating mga nakikita sa ating mga libro, sa ating mga cellphone ay nakasulat sa Philippine scripts, ano sa tingin nyo? Maganda ba yun? Again, we are in our current system now because of our history. Hindi ba? So, just a food for thought. What if hanggang ngayon ay baybayin pa rin halimbawa ang ginagamit natin? Or kulitan ng Pampanga. Kaya lang, kung makikita ninyo, dahil tayo ay archipelago, iba't iba pa din yung ating scripts na ginagamit. Okay? So, ang ibig sabihin ng lahat ng yan ay Pilipino sa iba't ibang mga scripts. Alright? So, that's number 2, that's script. The third is printing press. The printing press is a device that allows for the mass production of uniform printed matter, mainly text in the form of books, pamphlets, newspapers. It is revolutionized in China, where it was created. So, mga Chinese ang unang nag-imprenta nag-imbento ng printing. Okay? So, it's the Diamond Sutra from the Tang Dynasty, China, 868 AD, which is in British Museum, which is widely seen as the earliest existing printed book. Ito na yung pinakamaaga na printed book na naitala. So, noon pa lamang, 868 AD, ay ang China ay nagkaroon na ng teknolohiya sa pagpiprint. At ito ay naging mahalaga dahil mas madali silang nakapag-produce ng mga babasahin tungkol ito sa relihiyon noong panahong yun. Jo- Johannes Gutenberg further developed the printing press in the 15th century with his invention of the Gutenberg press. Dahil dito, mas naging mabilis yung pag-iimprenta ng mga printing press, mas naging mura. Yung production, mas maging mabilis, nakapag-produce ng mga libro, mga iba't ibang sulatin, at naitala yung experience, yung knowledge ng ating mundo. Di ba lagi nating gusto na itala, isulat kung ano yung mga mahalagang nangyari, kaalaman, impormasyon, balita. And dahil sa Gutenberg Press, ay nagawa natin yon. Okay? So, kumbaga, ito yung nag-revolutionize ng makabagong printing press ngayon. So, ayon kay Eisenstein, nakasulat sa Handbook of Globalization ng SAGE, ay ito yung mga consequences sa pagkaimbento ng printing press. So, the printing press changed the very nature of knowledge. It preserved the knowledge which had been more malleable in oral cultures. It also standardized knowledge. It changed the very nature of knowledge because you're able to, naiisulat mo na ito, naiitago mo, nai-distribute mo yung knowledge na nai-imprenta mo. Print also encouraged the challenge of political and religious authority because of its ability to circulate competing views. Printing press encouraged the literacy of the public and the growth of schools. Dahil sa printing press ay madami na na-produce na mga sulatin, lathalain, balita, etc. At dahil doon ay na-challenge ngayon yung political and religious authority. Kung babalikan nyo ang history ng Pilipinas, ang mga panulat ni Jose Rizal at ng iba pa nating mga bayani ang nag-challenge authority ng Espanya. La Solidaridad, No Limitangere, El Filibusterismo, at dahil na-imprinta ito at naikalat ito sa mga target na magbasa, ay napag-igting nito yung damdamin ng mga Pilipino na makibaka para sa kalayaan. So, yun yung sinasabi natin dito sa second part na ito. Dahil sa tulong ng sa printing press, ay mas naging open at nagkaroon ng iba't ibang views. Kasi kung nung wala pa, ang magsasabi lang sa'yo ng view ay yung higher authority, di ba? Ito lang ang pag-aralan mo, ito lang ang pakinggan mo. Nung nagkaroon na tayo ng ability na maisulat mo yung other views because of the ability to print, ay napaka nag-evolve ito. And yun nga, nagkaroon ng mas kaalaman ang mga publiko at kalaunan ay nag-grow na yung mga paaralan. So, that is number 4. Isa pa, part pa din ng printing press ito. Lands and culture were learned by people through travels. News around the world were brought through inexpensive and easily obtained magazines and daily newspapers. People learned about the world. Indeed, printing press helped foster globalization and knowledge of globalization. This is the manuscript of Antonio Pigafetta. Sino si Pigafetta? If you will remember your history, siya yung scribe, tagapsulat ni Ferdinand Magellan nung nag-voyage sila around the world. Ngayon, yung mga journal ni Pigafetta kumbaga ang window ng Pilipinas para malaman kung ano ba yung mga nakita niya nung panahong dumaong sila dito sa Pilipinas. Kasi dinescribe ni Pigafetta doon ang mga kasuotan ng mga Filipino, ang mga lengguwahe na kanyang narinig, and even may mga drawing pa ng mapa. So, ang original na manuscript ni Pigafetta ay nasa iba't ibang museums sa US, Italy, France, at pero dito sa Pilipinas meron ng digitized copy nito sa National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Mga mahihilig sa history dahil Nung panahon kasing yon ay um, talagang idino-document, parang diary, ang mga experiences. And then, ito din ay nung inilahathala ito, ipinakita ito sa mga hari at reyna nung panahon yun para mas i-encourage pa yung pagpapadala ng mga voyages ng mga bangka, ng mga barko para maglibot sa buong mundo. So, again, that's the topic on the printing press. At paano niya binago yung ating world of ideas in relation to globalization. Number 4, electronic media. Electronic media refer to the broadcast or storage media that take advantage of electronic technology. Electricity, gumagamit ng kuryente, include television, radio, internet, fax, CD-ROMs. Alam niyo pa ba ang CD-ROMs? DVD, and any other medium that requires electricity or digital encoding of information. So, iyon yung mga bahagi ng electronic media. And ang pinakasikat na electronic media ay ang television. So, ito yung evolution of television from the 1930s to the 2010s. And sa 2020s, di ba, mas numipis pa yan. So, sino sa inyo ang merong sa mga lola't lola ninyo ang merong mga ganitong TV. Ang lolo't lola ko ay may ganito. 1970s TV na ito ay nakalagay sa isang cabinet na mahaba and then may pinto, may maliit na pinto. Kapag tapos ka ng manood ng TV, ay isasara mo na yung pinto ng screen. Pag manunood ka, ay bubuksan mo ulit ang screen. Di ba ang ganda? But then, para siyang para siyang furniture, para siyang lamesa TV in one. Sino sa inyo ang nakakita na ng ganoon? And hanggang sa nag-evolve na ito, parang box lang dati, tapos nagkaroon ng parang tube. Ito, 2000s, may tube yan sa likod, mabigat yan. Picture tube, hindi ba? And then 2010s yan, panipis na ng panipis, hanggang ngayon ay may bended na mga TV and sobrang malalaki high definition. So what do you think is the future of television? Just a food for thought. Ano pa kaya ang future ng television? Alright. Ang isa ko pang naiisip din is, do you think TV will be out of style in the future? Ay hindi na tayo manonood sa TV at sa mga cellphones na lang? So, we'll never know. Technology is evolving and laging may bago at bago. So, yan. The evolution of television as your most popular electronic media. Electronic media in the 20th century, the only available mass media in remote villages was the radio, while film was soon developed as the artistic medium for great cultural expression. The most powerful and pervasive mass media is television, as it brought the visual and oral power of film with the accessibility of radio. The introduction of television was a defining moment in globalization kasi kahit nasa bahay ka lang, nakikita mo ang anong nangyayari sa ibang bansa, nakikita mo yung ay ganito pala yung kinakain doon, ganito pala yung buhay doon. Kahit naman ngayon, because of the television, we are able to travel to Japan, New Zealand, to South America to see what life they have there kahit hindi naman tayo pumupunta. So, it was a defining moment for globalization. The interconnectedness nating ng mga tao sa mundo. So, that's electronic media, number 4. And number 5, it's digital media. Here comes your YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Vimeo, Pinterest, Spotify, Twitter, WhatsApp. Hindi ko kayang i-determine yung iba. Can you determine this? This? Ito ay Google Plus. For digital media, the computer is considered the most important media influencing globalization. Computers give access to global marketplace and transform cultural life. our daily lives is revolutionized by digital media. People are able to adopt and adapt new practices like fashion, sports, music, food, and many others through access of information provided by computers. They also exchange ideas, establish relations, linkages through the use of Skype, Google Chat, Zoom, and many other platforms. Binago niya talaga yung ating personal cultural life. Especially now that it's pandemic, you are uh, listening to a lecture in this YouTube video, which hindi natin naman naisip dati. And um, it is possible pala. Our homes become our schools, and because of the media, the digital media, we were able to do that. How about kung wala pang digital media? What would we do during pandemic? Hindi ba? Kung ang ating um, maaasahan lang ay face-to-face na interaction. So because of this, we are able to continue our ways of life. That's digital media. Again, what we have is the five eras, the five periods na mahalaga sa study of globalization and media is una, oral communication, two, script, three, printing press, four, electronic media, and five, digital media. Let's go to the last part of our lesson, which is popular music and globalization. Let's think first of your music. Just questions. Sagutin nyo lang in your minds. What kind of music do you listen to? Who is your favorite musical artist? What influenced you to like that kind of music? Do you have your musical heroes? Where are they from? What are their nationalities? Sino yung mga idol mo? Bakit mo sila gusto? Sinong nagtulak sa'yo para magustuhan mo yan? Think about that. Dahil ba napanood mo sa TV? Nakita mo sa internet, sa Facebook? Sino? Why do you like? What do you like now? So, given that, let's go first to let me share first about a piece of history na nakita ko sa ating pag-research. In a book of David Irving, Colonial Counterpoint, Music in the Early Modern Manila. Sabi niya is that nung panahon pa ng the Spaniards dito sa Pilipinas, ay mayroon na mga influences sa colonial music. Okay? So, the Spanish imperial project was arguably the first to connect things globally with the conquest of Manila. One can start to speak musical globalization at this early date, as Irving suggests in a recent study of colonial counterpoint in the Philippines. Paano? In commenting on the speed which indigenous populations turned towards church counterpoint, and in fact became noted for their musical skill far beyond the Philippines. Irving observes that pre-colonial indigenous practice, bago pa dumating ang mga Spaniards, ang mga ninuno natin, mga indigenous people natin, ay were already involved in multi-part singing and involved devotion to female deities. May pagsamba na sila. Pag sinabi nating female deities, sumasamba na sila sa imahe ng isang babae. Pwedeng ito ay sa isang imahe na nasa kalikasan. Meron na kumbaga, meron na silang spirituality na may sinasamba. Many were, in other words, ready to participate in their colonial transformation, musically speaking, at least. So, kumbaga, bahagi na yung pag-chant, pagkanta, doon sa kanilang sinasambang female deity. Ngayon, parang dahil doon, mas naging handa yung mga indigenous people dito sa Pilipinas na tanggapin yung pagdating ng kolonyalismo na local elites in which there was much intermarriage came to understand themselves as mixed and attribute value to their mixed cultural practices as mistizahe. Mistizahe. They took pride in church music. So, yung mga intermarriage, hindi ba, yung mga um, mas nakararangya na mga Filipinos na kakasal sa mga Spaniards, and then usually they're very religious, and nagiging bahagi sila ng mga activities ng simbahan. So, the Manilan Church thus led in the development of a variety of new Marian repertoire, many of which were exported via Mexico to Europe. So ang sinasabi lang dito is yung mga kanta sa simbahan, yung devotion, Marian repertoire. So kumbaga, devotion ito kay Mama Mary, so mga kanta na tungkol doon. And ang sinasabi dito is that even pre-colonial, pre-Spaniards ay may kakayahan na yung mga Filipino na mag-engage sa music in terms of pagsamba sa mga female gods, deities na nakikita nila sa paligid kung anumang form iyon. Lalo na nung pumasok ang mga Spaniards at pinakilala ang Kristyanismo, at dahil nga hanggang ngayon naman ay madami pa din tayo na veneration, pagsamba through songs, ay talagang ito ay pinagpatuloy ng mga Pilipino yung music na yon. So, kumbaga, ang sinasabi lang dito is that yun yung una na intersection ng ating music sa colonial music, okay? Through the religious aspect, yung pagkanta sa simbahan. Alright? Kasi talagang alam niyo naman na yung religion ang talagang focus noong mga panahong yun, during the Spanish colonization period. Okay? So, basically, to summarize that, music participates in the reinforcing of boundaries of culture and identity. Popular music explains the complex dynamics of globalization, not only because it is popular, but music is highly mediated, is deeply invested in meaning, and has proven to be an extremely mobile and resourceful capital. So, sa globalization, music and globalization, talagang tayo ay nai-influence nito. And tingnan na lang natin kung sino ba yung mga sumikat na artists in the past. Of course, you know them. Sino sila? And sino din sila? They are the Beatles. British four-man band in the 1960s. Sila yung I can say BTS ng panahon na yon. In 1994, in the 1990s, this girl band was making the airwaves. Talagang sikat na sikat sila. You know them? The Spice Girls. They are also British. And in the 1990s, early end of 1990s, 1998 na form ang Westlife. And during that time, the world was crazy for them sa mga kanta nila. And in the early 2000s, who would forget? Kilala nyo ba sila? Itong apat na to? The F4. Diba? Dito sa Philippines, sobrang sikat nila. And also sa parts of Asia, Southeast Asia, and Asia. Alright? So, bago pa dumating ang BTS, ay nauna na sila. Alright? So, that's our lesson for today. We talked about global media culture. Thank you and have a nice day.